I was the only Omega in a family full of powerful alphas. Both my fathers, an Enigma and an Alpha, were top-tier, elite figures in the Alpha society. Naturally, they expected their only child to be nothing less than a dominant, top-rated Alpha as well. But fate played its cruelest joke on them. I, Jamie Walsh, was born a rare, fragile Omega, with a soft, lychee-scented pheromone that made me stand out in all the wrong ways. Since childhood, I was treated like something breakable. I wasn't allowed to go anywhere alone. I was constantly watched, protected, sheltered, and still, always looked down on by my alpha and beta cousins. I wasn't hated by my parents, never, not exactly. But I was pitied, controlled, trained to stay silent, to obey, to submit, just like an Omega should. My Enigma dad, stern and unreadable, was strict with me to the point of suffocation. My Alpha dad was warmer. He showed affection, even if only in brief, careful doses. But love never changed the fact that I was raised as a puppet, groomed to play the role society had written for me, and Omega meant only to be a spouse, never more. A shadow beside someone else's power. And I accepted that, until everything fell apart. A tragic accident left both my parents hospitalized. My Enigma father was so badly injured he could no longer work, and with his absence, our family business began to crumble. That's when my uncle, my father's own Alpha brother and longtime rival, sank his teeth in and ripped everything away from us. We lost almost everything, but my father wasn't someone who gave up easily. Even lying in a hospital bed, he made a decision that would change my life completely. He arranged my marriage to the most powerful man in the country, the eldest son of the richest tycoon family. I still remember that moment clearly. My Alpha dad held me close, his hug firm yet gentle. For the first time, he looked at me not with disappointment, but with quiet hope. Jamie, my dear, I don't know if everything will go back to how it was. I don't know if we'll ever recover what we've lost. But what matters now, is your future. If you agree to marry him, maybe you'll get the life we couldn't give you. Just promise me, always be a good Omega to your Alpha, alright? I didn't know what to feel. I was confused, lost, like a newborn chick pushed out of the nest too soon. But I nodded anyway, not because I understood, but because it was what I'd been taught to do. Obey. The man I was set to marry was none other than Kavion Harrington. The name alone was enough to shake entire boardrooms and make politicians sweat. He was the eldest heir of the Harrington family, the most powerful, most dangerous, and most influential Alpha bloodline in the country. They said he was the highest-rated Alpha ever recorded. The kind of Alpha who could silence a room just by walking in. The kind who didn't need to shout to make the world kneel. But no one really knew what he looked like. Kavion Harrington kept an incredibly low profile. He didn't attend social events. He didn't give interviews. He never even let his photos circulate. The rumors about him were terrifying. Some claimed he was ancient, twice my age and barely holding on to life. Others whispered that he was hideously scarred, the result of some brutal Alpha battle in his youth. The most popular story, that he was so monstrous to look at, he hid from the world entirely. And now, I was being married to that monster. I was terrified, genuinely, deeply terrified. They said he had a temper sharper than steel. That one wrong word, one misstep, could be the end of you. I once overheard that someone who tried to spy on his private affairs was caught the very same night, and sent so far out of the country, it was like he never existed. At all. Was I walking into a prison? A cage? A funeral? My cousins seemed to think so. They didn't even try to hide their sneers. Their whispers followed me like ghosts in the hallways. What a pathetic life, first born an Omega, now getting married off to an old hag. Tisk. Should have felt bad for him. Nah, he deserves it. He was always a stain on the family name. Good riddance. Every word cut like a blade. But I didn't say anything. I swallowed it all. I lowered my eyes and stayed silent. Because if my pain could give my fathers even a sliver of relief, then maybe it was worth it. I agreed to the marriage. Even if my heart was full of fear. Even if my future looked like a locked room with no windows. And even though I knew the truth, knew in my bones that my Alpha uncle was behind the car accident that ruined my family, I said nothing. My dads made me promise to leave it be, to focus on the wedding. To trust them, so I nodded again, letting my uncle believe he'd won. Even though I swore to myself, one day, He'd regret ever touching what belonged to my family. It was finally the day. I stood in front of the mirror, hardly recognizing myself. The white wedding suit fit me perfectly, almost like it was tailored to hide how unsteady I felt inside. My silver gray hair was styled carefully over my forehead, not a strand out of place, and yet, my eyes betrayed everything: uncertainty, dread, and the weight of something unknown pressing down on me. Today wasn't just any day. Outside, a grand ceremony unfolded, something out of a billionaire's fantasy. Massive crystal chandeliers hung from the ceiling of the glass hall, glittering like stars in daylight. The air was heavy with the scent of imported roses and expensive perfume. The guest list was no less overwhelming: business tycoons, government officials, family allies, and far too many people from the media. All because of one man. Kavion Harrington. The man who never showed his face. The alpha who never gave interviews or attended events. The recluse. The enigma. But today was different. Rumors had already spread like wildfire. Kavion Harrington is finally making a public appearance. He's going to introduce his Omega to the world. And that Omega was me. My heart pounded harder the more I thought about it. Why would a man like him marry someone like me? A nobody Omega from a disgraced family, a family with no power, no resources, no protection anymore. The whole situation felt like a twisted joke I didn't understand, and as if the universe wanted to rub salt into every wound neither of my fathers could attend. The doctors had been strict. After the accident, they couldn't leave the hospital for weeks. So guess who was walking me down the aisle? Josh Voss, my alpha uncle, the very man who orchestrated this downfall. He offered me a smile as fake as his expensive teeth, acting like he hadn't just destroyed my family's life. He extended his arm, like this was his victory parade and I was the ribbon at the finish line. All around me, whispers floated like poison in the air. Why isn't his family here? Did you see that? The Omega looks terrified. What did he offer the Harringtons to make this happen? Why would Kavion marry someone like that? I clenched my jaw and said nothing. There was no room for tears. Not today. Uncle Josh leaned close to me as we approached the main stage, his voice syrupy with venom. Happy marriage, my dear nephew Jamie. He smirked, like he was personally handing me over to hell. I didn't hesitate. I muttered, low and sharp, please leave before I lose my anger. His chuckle was quiet but sinister. Is that how you speak to your loving uncle? Naughty boy. He smiled at the cameras like the world's favorite gentleman, giving me a pat on the back that made my skin crawl. He leaned in again, just before leaving. Don't forget who put you in that suit. I didn't respond. I didn't need to, because at that moment the music changed. The atmosphere shifted, and I knew he was here. Kavion Harrington. I stood frozen, barely breathing, completely forgetting what to do with my hands until I heard the gasps. And then the whispers. Then came a few stunned screams. He had arrived. Kavion Harrington, the man I was marrying. I didn't dare look up. My eyes stayed glued to the ground. Not just from fear, but from what I was told: never look an alpha in the eyes, especially one of the highest rank. Especially someone like him. The rumors said he was old, ugly, dangerous, that he kept to the shadows for a reason, and that his appearance was something no one wanted to see. That's why I didn't look. I couldn't. But then, I heard the voices. My cousins. Their tones had changed entirely. No way, that's him. What the fuck? He's not ugly. He looks nothing like the rumors. Did he walked out of magazine? He's marrying our cousin. No, seriously, he's too perfect. My brows furrowed in confusion. What do they mean perfect? Isn't he supposed to be? And then I saw them. A pair of expensive, polished black shoes stopping right in front of me. My breath caught. The scent hit me next. Powerful, commanding, yet clean and rich. Minty and woodsy, laced with something darker, intoxicating. His pheromones wrapped around me like invisible silk, sending goosebumps crawling across my arms. It was so good, too good, it made something inside me crave more. The ceremony began. People fell silent, the priest reciting vows that echoed through the grand hall. But I didn't look up. I thought maybe he wouldn't care. That he'd say his part and leave it at that. But then I noticed his feet. One step, a second, a deliberate move closer to me. And then, his voice. Low, deep, whispery, like ice against fire. Why don't you look at me? My whole body shivered at that one sentence. I didn't even need to see his face to know he was smirking lazily. I can't look at an alpha in the eye, I whispered truthfully. A pause. Then came his answer, strong, calm, commanding. I am not any alpha. His voice hit different, sharp, personal, like he was claiming something already his. Then came the ring exchange. He picked up the ring meant for me and reached for my hand, but stopped. Waiting for permission. I hesitated, but then slowly moved my hand into his. He held my wrist gently. His fingers, long, warm, confident, wrapped around my hand, as his other hand slid the ring onto my finger with ease. And with that, he said the words that made my heart skip. I'm your alpha now, you're allowed to look at me however you want. I was stunned. My eyes widened, my chest tightened. I couldn't even lift my gaze, not because of fear anymore, but because my heart was racing too fast. Embarrassment, shyness, a whirlwind of emotions. He handed me his ring next. I slipped it onto his finger slowly, still unable to meet his eyes. The crowd erupted with applause. Cameras flashed, reporters whispered. Then came the final part. The kiss. Before I could brace myself, his hand reached out and cradled my cheek, fingertips brushing against the side of my neck, gentle, firm, almost protective. He tilted my face up with careful ease. I couldn't breathe. His lips, thin, red, perfectly shaped, were all I could see. But instead of kissing my lips, he leaned forward and pressed a kiss to my forehead. Soft, warm, respectful. Then he stepped back and turned to the cameras, his face calm, composed, proud. And me, I stood there completely stunned. I had finally looked up. And what I saw stole every word, every thought, every breath from my body. Kavion Harrington, the man they called a monster. The man they said was too old, too ugly. He was nothing like that. He was everything opposite, towering at 6 feet 3 inches, broad-shouldered and carved like a god in a suit that hugged his body like it was crafted for him alone. Black hair, sleekly styled to the side, skin clear and glowing, sharp jawline cutting sharper than truth, a nose that was straight perfection. His eyes, piercing and unreadable, but when they looked at me, they looked at me. Soft, and that small smirk. It made me feel like I was about to pass out from how hard my heart pounded. What do you mean I'm married to him? A literal Greek god in a 3-piece suit. And now, I was his. After the ceremony, the cameras never stopped flashing, not once. Of course, it was Kavion's first appearance in front of the media. Everyone was going crazy over his god-tier looks. So was I. People came and went, greeting, talking, taking pictures, but he didn't leave my side for even a second. I hope I'm not making you uncomfortable, Mr. Jamie Harrington, my Omega husband, he said with a soft smile. And God, that smile, if smiles could win first prize, his would be the trophy. His gaze was gentle, eyes never leaving my face, hands casually tucked in his pockets. I felt so small, still too overwhelmed to meet his eyes. All I could manage was a quiet nod. Just then, my cousins came over, smiling, but I could see the bitterness and jealousy hidden in their faces. Oh, hi, Mr. Kavion Harrington. Nice to meet you, one of them said, grinning widely, too widely. Kavion gave a polite nod, acknowledging them as my cousins. We didn't expect you to turn out like this. Haha, just curious, how did you agree to marry him? They said, throwing me a look that made my self-esteem drop 10 levels. But Kavion didn't give them a chance to go any further. His reply was calm but sharp, like a blade wrapped in velvet. Good. I didn't marry him to meet your expectations. Curiosity kills, stay in your lane. They went quiet, speechless. So was I. We were just saying. Don't be mad at us, another cousin jumped in awkwardly. We're just worried you'll be disappointed with him. He can be really silent and annoying sometimes. Kavion's smile didn't fade, but his voice dropped just slightly lower. He's silent because he doesn't need to prove anything to people who never tried to understand him. And I don't want him speaking if he doesn't want to. I just want him to stay in his comfort zone. That shut them up real fast. They smiled awkwardly before walking away, clearly fuming but unable to argue back. I'm sorry, I muttered, eyes glued to the floor. Why are you apologizing? He asked, voice gentle. We're married now. I want you to feel free with me, always. You don't have to hold back, not with me. He smiled again, and I could feel him watching me like I was the only person in the room. As your husband, I want to be someone you can lean on. Let me care for you. Pamper you. It's not just my hope, it's my privilege. So please, allow me. His hand reached out, making me flinch slightly, but he only brushed off some confetti from my shoulder with the softest touch. And for the first time, I slowly looked up at him and I couldn't look away. He was still watching me, intentionally catching my gaze, locking eyes with me like he didn't want to look at anything else in the world. On the ride back home, I stayed quiet. Kavion, on the other hand, wore his usual gentle expression, at least when he looked at me. I had noticed how cold he was with others, especially the media people who tried to ask me questions I wasn't ready to answer. He had shut them down immediately with that icy gaze, yet never once let his warmth waver when it came to me. Even in silence, I felt awkward, nervous and shy, knowing I had stepped into a new world. Just then, the car stopped. I looked at him, confused. But he got out without saying anything, and a moment later returned holding snacks. He handed them to me, and I blinked, still confused. You didn't eat anything earlier, he said softly. I figured you weren't comfortable. So now please eat, and tell me if you want more. I don't want my husband going hungry on our first night together. He smiled as he said it, buckling his seatbelt and starting the engine again. I stared at the food in my lap, feeling oddly warm. Giddy, even. I didn't realize how hungry I was until I slowly unwrapped the burger. I stared at it for a moment, then took a slow, cautious bite, only for the sauce to squirt out, smearing around my mouth. A low chuckle rumbled through the car, sending a shiver through me. I turned toward him, eyes wide in surprise, only to see him smirking, eyes still on the road. I told you to be comfortable with me, he said, amused. Eat how you always do. Don't hold back. I swallowed hard, then gave a small nod. I took another couple of polite bites, but soon enough, I was eating how I normally do. I couldn't help it, the food was good, and I was starving. I glanced at the rearview mirror and caught him watching me, a quiet smile on his face, as if seeing me relax brought him joy. When we arrived at his mansion, no, our mansion, I was stunned. It was beautiful, huge, luxurious. Of course, I thought. As expected of him, he led the way inside, all the way to a spacious bedroom. Our bedroom. My steps faltered when I realized we'd be sharing it, and he caught my expression instantly, giving me a teasing smirk. Later, when I tried to change, I struggled with the cufflinks on my suit. I wasn't used to wearing formal clothes like these. He noticed, of course he did, and came over without a word, gently helping me undo them. These cufflinks are old anyway, he murmured. I'll buy you new ones. I nodded, eyes down, whispering a quiet, thank you. After changing into warm, loose pajamas, I lay on the bed, hugging a pillow close. I wanted to see Kavion, but he never came back after saying he had work. It made me feel sad, honestly. My mind kept spinning with thoughts. Was he already regretting marrying me? Did I do something wrong? Eventually, I fell asleep with those questions still on my mind. The next morning, I walked slowly into the massive dining room. Kavion was already seated at the long table, typing something on his tablet. He had one leg crossed, a hand elegantly holding a coffee cup, sipping it slowly. Dressed in a tailored suit, he looked perfect, so composed and distant, yet strangely familiar now. I fidgeted beside him for a while, then finally asked in a quiet voice. Why didn't you return last night? He glanced up at me. I thought you might be uncomfortable, so I stayed in another room, he replied smoothly. Why, was the bed uncomfortable? I shook my head quickly. No, the bed was fine. I wouldn't mind if you stayed there with me. The words slipped out fast, almost too fast. His eyes widened in surprise. Really? He asked, watching me carefully. I nodded shyly. He smiled, so gently I swore I saw a faint red tint creep up to his ears. Then I won't repeat that mistake again. I gave a small smile before focusing on breakfast, heart beating a little faster. After breakfast, he was getting ready to leave for work, standing near the door with his assistant speaking quietly beside him. I stood back, watching them. Just before stepping out, Kavion dismissed his assistant with a nod and turned to me. Is there anything you want me to bring for you? He asked, his voice soft. I blinked at the unexpected question, then slowly nodded. Dumplings. He chuckled. Okay, I'll make sure to bring some for you. Then, gently, he reached out and patted my hair. I froze, heart racing, fingers instinctively reaching up to touch the spot where his hand had been. My face burned with heat. True to his word, he brought me dumplings that night, lots of them. He didn't know my preferences, so he bought different flavors. I sat on the couch, happily eating them, feeling giddy. He was beside me, now dressed in soft nightwear, glasses perched on his nose as he worked on his laptop. After a while, he closed it and looked at me with a smile. Did you like them? I nodded quickly, mouth full. He seemed to think for a second before asking. Your scent. I stiffened immediately. Oh no, is it too much? Is it too strong? I'm so sorry, I can't always control it. Is it uncomfortable for you? I started panicking. He raised his hand, shaking his head calmly. No, calm down. That's not what I meant. He smiled. I was trying to say, your scent. It's lychee, right? I nodded slowly. It smells good, sweet, and a little tangy. I like it, he said, leaning back against the couch. I swallowed hard, feeling suddenly shy. He then sat up straighter, his expression turning serious. I thought, maybe now's a good time to talk about this. He looked at me gently. Is your heat period coming soon? I blinked in surprise, cheeks burning. How did he know? Don't worry, my heats are irregular. It'll take a while, and I'll take suppressants so I don't bother you, I said, looking down. His brows drew together. Why would you do that? I just don't want to cause trouble for you. You wouldn't be, he said firmly. I won't be disturbed, just worried. And if you want, I'd love to help you through it, only if you let me. But if not, that's fine too. Just don't stress yourself over it. I looked at him, stunned, heart pounding. What about you? I asked softly. He smiled again. My rut doesn't really follow a schedule. It just shows up uninvited, like the seasons, or annoying relatives. I blinked then let out a small giggle. Are you laughing? He teased, pretending to look offended. I knew it. I'm actually hilarious. The world's just not ready for me. But lucky you get front row seats to all of it, forever. I chuckled. I guess I'll look forward to it. His laughter joined mine, soft and easy. Then he leaned his arm on the couch resting his chin on his palm as he gazed at me, openly, warmly, without a single filter. His eyes were filled with such gentle affection, it was overwhelming. I looked away quickly, struggling to act normal, but I was melting inside. And honestly, I didn't mind it. I was enjoying every second of it. A week had passed, and my married life was everything I'd never dared to imagine, if I'd imagined it at all. It was sweeter, kinder, warmer. I found myself melting every single time. His care, attention, and constant pampering made me wonder if I even deserved it. But he never let me overthink. The next week came, and Kavion had a business meeting to attend. I woke up early to see him off. When he learned I was up, he smiled happily and gently kissed my forehead before leaving. We'd never gone beyond those small, tender gestures, not even lip kisses. Just forehead kisses, and that was enough to make me the happiest person alive. It didn't take long before he called, checking on me, asking how my day was. I enjoyed hearing his voice, but damn, I was missing him more than I ever thought possible. One day, feeling restless and wanting to see my dad's, I decided to visit the hospital. The sterile smell of antiseptic and the tense atmosphere made me nervous, but I tried to stay calm. When I arrived, I was shocked, stunned, to find my Uncle Josh there with his son and daughter, blocking my way and not letting me enter the room or see my parents. What do you think you're doing, Uncle Josh? Let me see my fathers, I exclaimed, struggling as his son grabbed my wrist tightly to stop me. I'll let you see them, only if you sign some papers for me, Uncle Josh said with a sinister smile that made my blood run cold. Since you have yourself such a dashing, rich husband, surely you don't need the rest of your father's property, right? Why don't you just hand it over to us? He said, eyeing me carefully. It hit me then, my fathers had signed their entire empire and properties in my name. And now Uncle Josh had his eyes on it. If I signed those papers, everything would be his. Never. My dad worked hard his entire life for that. Even if I don't deserve it, how could you think you can just take it? Never. Leave it as it is. Let me go and talk to my dad's, I said, trying to pull away from his son's grip. Jamie darling, don't be a pain. Just do as I say, Uncle Josh hissed. I shook my head fiercely. Never. Angered, he looked at his son, who immediately dragged me away, kicking me out of the hospital building. The guards refused to let me back in. I stayed outside the entire day, holding back my emotions and pain. They still wouldn't let me see my parents or even talk to them for signatures. I knew Uncle Josh must be telling them I didn't care, that I hadn't bothered to check on them, and making me out to be the villain. My dads wouldn't care though. I knew they'd be happy knowing I was married and in good hands. But no, I wanted to tell them myself, that I was happy and that thanks to Kavion, my life was good. I just couldn't get in. I had never felt so useless, so helpless. Even the universe seemed to laugh at me as the skies opened up, and rain poured down heavily, drenching me as I stood there. Then suddenly, a sharp, pounding pain struck me like a rock falling on my head. My heart thudded wildly, electricity jolting through my body as I collapsed to the ground, coughing. Wait, what the hell? My heat never starts like this. How the hell am I having my heat, out of nowhere? I thought the emotional and mental pressure had triggered it. Now it was impossible for me to stay calm. Clutching my chest tightly, I couldn't even stand. Thankfully, I don't know how, but one of Kavion's guards passing by saw me and instantly took action. He gently but firmly helped me back to the mansion. I couldn't focus on anything. I locked myself in our bedroom, bearing the unbearable pain and discomfort. I laid on the bed hugging the sheets tightly, trying to inhale just a little of the woodsy scent. Kavion's scent, which somehow became my only solace. Struggling to stand, I walked to the cupboard and pulled out all of Kavion's clothes and suits. I made myself a nest of his garments on the bed, finally finding a bit of peace before I drifted off to sleep. When I woke up, it was evening. Still drowsy, I slowly glanced around, breathing in that strong woodsy scent that calmed my nerves. Kavion, you're back, I muttered, rubbing my eyes as I sat up. He sat on the chair across from me, calm as ever, though worry was etched clearly on his face. How are you feeling? He asked softly. The doctor gave you injection to suppress the heat while you were asleep. Is it working now? I rubbed my neck. Ah, yeah, I'm feeling better. But you're back so soon. I got a call that my husband wasn't well. How do you expect me to keep working? His serious tone made me gulp. When did you return? I asked, swallowing nervously. How long have you been here, watching me? Not long. Maybe 4 hours, he said calmly. I looked at the wall clock, it was 5 p.m. I'd been asleep for 5 hours, and he'd been here for 4. He'd rushed back for me. The thought made my stomach twist. He had been watching me sleep while I held onto his clothes. Oh my God, vanish me, please. Do you need anything else? I'll ask the maids to bring you some food and your meds, he offered, worry deepening in his voice as he stood up. I shook my head. Please tell me if you need anything, he repeated, but I still shook my head as, no. His expression hardened, almost mad. Jamie Harrington, I've said it before, and I'll say it again, as your husband, I need you to tell me everything freely, without hesitation. No matter what you want or need, just say it. I'll do my best to make it happen. I want that for you, but I can't understand why you keep doing the opposite and shutting me out like an outsider. His voice cracked as if he was hurt. He genuinely looked hurt. I was stunned. No, not that, I'm so sorry. I didn't mean to make you feel that way, I muttered. He leaned closer. Then use me. Just say what you want, any of your wishes, and watch me fulfill them just how you like, he said. His eyes and voice carried deep, endless layers, as if he was waiting for me to say the word and he'd throw the world at my feet. I felt shy, embarrassed, overwhelmed. I really don't need much now. I bit my lip. Maybe you could hug me. He raised an eyebrow. I shut my eyes. I like your scent, so maybe you could hug me. It would calm me, I said finally, only to hear his chuckle. I expected something bigger, but this will do. You can't ask for things like this. I'm your husband. You can just do it, he said, pulling me instantly into a soft yet firm hug. I melted in his embrace. His gentleness and scent felt like home, warmth and safety. This was so much better than any clothes. Later, Kavion brought me all kinds of dishes, seafood and anything else I could think of, along with my meds, making sure I was as comfortable as possible. I was happy and grateful, but the feelings from that morning kept roaming in my mind. I glanced over at Kavion, who sat beside me, focused on his laptop. Finally, I made up my mind. Will you really fulfill any request I make? I asked quietly. It was as if he'd been waiting his entire life to hear those words. He closed the laptop gently and looked me straight in the eye, a faint smirk playing on his lips. You just have to name it, he said. My heart thumped at the sound of his voice. I held my chest, gathering courage before speaking. I want to get back at my dad's. I want revenge on my uncle. His smile deepened as he stood up. It's late. Time for you to sleep, he said, but his reaction confused me. Huh, I blinked. He came over, picked me up in his arms, and I instantly held on tight as he carried me to the bedroom. Did you hear what I said? I asked as he laid me down and pulled the covers over me. Yes, I did, he nodded. Then are you ignoring it? I frowned. How could I ignore it when my husband, for the first time ever, asked me for something? He smiled, brushing a kiss on my forehead. Give me 2 days, and you'll get the kind of justice you can enjoy, he promised. His words relaxed me somehow. I knew he would do as he said. He patted the covers, about to leave, but I grabbed his fingers. Muttering shyly, why don't you kiss me? On the lips. He looked surprised for a moment before smiling. Oh, you want that? I nodded, cheeks flushed. He knelt down beside me, leaning closer, cradling my face gently with both hands. His lips pressed softly against mine, a tender kiss full of passion and warmth that made butterflies stir in my stomach. After the kiss, he shifted to my neck, placing gentle kisses that almost took my breath away. Good night, he whispered, then stood and left. I lay there clutching the sheets, rolling from side to side, feeling giddy, so happy, so loved, like a teenage girl with her first crush. The next day, right after breakfast, I wanted to ask about last night but found I didn't need to. Kavion gently wrapped his arms around my waist, pulling me close. He kissed my forehead, his lips lingering, then kissed both my cheeks before finally capturing my lips with a passionate, almost devouring kiss. His fingers reached up to gently tug and caress my earlobe. Don't stress about anything, he murmured, brushing my hair away from my eyes. Just be ready for the fun, he said with a wink, then left. I was confused at first but soon understood what he meant. Half the day had passed when Uncle Josh called me to the hospital. I went immediately and found him furious but helpless. His dream of sending his son abroad was shattered. Somehow, his son's visa and all papers had been rejected everywhere, and many airports were even refusing them entry. His daughter, some leaked footage showed them paying to get her into a modeling agency, and now she was facing harsh criticism online. They were on the verge of being kicked out. His business, its value had plummeted dramatically, from 100 to 90, then 65, and worse by the night. Everything was absurdly falling apart, and I was shocked but secretly thrilled. Somehow, I knew who was behind it all. Uncle Josh almost begged me to fix everything. He knew Kavion was responsible and that only I could make Kavion do as I pleased. The power I held made me feel invincible. Finally, I got to meet my dads. Both were emotional. I cried when I saw them, and almost argued over why they had named everything after me. Dad smiled warmly. You're my one and only son. If not you, then who else could I give them to? He patted my hair affectionately. Are you happy, dear? Is he treating you well? My other dad asked. I almost teared up, nodding. Yes, he does, he treats me very well. I sniffled like a baby. Uncle Josh and his kids were going crazy, but thankfully Kavion arrived with his guards and took control. Kavion gave a polite bow to them, smiling. Father-in-laws, I hope you're doing well. My dad laughed. You kept your promise, didn't you? Kavion chuckled. Of course, I plan to keep it forever, he said, sharing knowing looks with my dads, leaving me confused about what secrets they might be hiding. On the ride back home, I watched Kavion suspiciously as he drove with that soft, calm expression. What promise were you talking about with my dads? I asked, but he silenced me by handing me snacks. When we reached home, I crossed my arms and asked again. He chuckled, held my cheeks gently, and leaned in to kiss me, but I stopped him. Answer me first, I said firmly. He sighed with a smile, circling his arms around my waist and pulling me closer. Then he paused, as if thinking hard, before he spoke. Once upon a time, there was a boy at a party, all alone. No one gave him attention. Then this boy with lychee scent and silver hair, beautiful eyes, came handing me chocolate and stayed by my side the whole night. He promised he'd always accompany me. The little boy asked if I'd marry him then. And that lychee boy agreed. He smiled softly. I was stunned. Everything clicked in my mind. I remembered a business function I attended with my father's when I was 10. Everyone there was rich, important tycoons. My cousins ignored me and looked down on me. I was alone and bored, until I found a boy with black hair and a woody scent standing quietly, holding a big glass of juice. He was alone too. I went up to him and gave him chocolate. 2 words later, we became friends. He was so shy and silent, and I even snuck him cakes. We ate together secretly on the balcony, watching the stars. He told me he was the eldest son with heavy responsibilities. I didn't even know what responsibility meant back then, but I promised I'd accompany him forever. He asked if I'd marry him, and I agreed innocently. Then, I never really saw him again. So that boy was Kavion. I felt my throat tighten, emotions rushing through me. That cute little boy was you? I asked softly. He nodded, teasing, of course it was me. Why, am I not cute anymore? I smiled and wrapped my arms around his neck. You're much more handsome now. So you've liked me since then? I asked. He nodded again. Yeah, when I told your parents about the marriage, they agreed. The timing was right. I've been planning our wedding since then. Oh, so you planned it all? I said, shocked. He nodded happily, proud. I chuckled, making him smile. He held my face and kissed me passionately. You didn't know it, but from that moment we were married. You've been mine, my omega in every sense. That wedding day didn't start it, it just made it official. You've always belonged to me, he whispered against my lips, and I smiled, our foreheads touching. Oh, I forgot, he suddenly said, pulling away and taking something from his pocket. It was the cufflinks he promised that day. I'll teach you how to wear them, okay? He said. I nodded, smiling before hugging him tightly. He hugged me back just as hard. You see, my rut is really near, so. Yes, I cut him off, looking into his eyes. I'm ready. I'd love to. I'm comfortable with you. I'm willing. He was surprised for a moment before chuckling. You know how to make me happy. He kissed my forehead gently. I want to go on a trip, I suddenly said as he busied himself kissing my cheeks, neck, and ears. He sounded so happy. Sure, baby, tell me where you want to go. Anywhere beautiful. Just us, together, I replied. He nodded, clearly thrilled that I was comfortable enough to ask for things. He snuggled into my neck, inhaling my scent. I want to eat cheesecakes too, I added. Sure, keep saying anything you want. You'll have it before your eyes, he said with the widest, happiest smile. Before I knew it, he suddenly picked me up, carried me to the bed, and showered me with kisses as I laughed loudly. So this is my life now, my happy wedding life. I never knew it would be so perfect, but it was perfect. Beautiful, and amazing.